or folding tables and chairs, there's just no reason to spend. There are people out there who don't need them and are happy to share.
And then there's the tried and true, and I don't think it's too late for this. Make it a potluck. Have people bring.
100,000% for sure. Make it a potluck. Not only does it save everybody money who's attending, it also saves the host from having to make everything, and that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of investment of your time and money and sanity, frankly. So absolutely. And also too, I think it makes a more interesting meal. You get a little taste of everybody's childhood Thanksgiving in those cases, probably, and also different cultures too.
And under the potluck suggestion, don't forget mac and cheese. Didn't we have that in the beginning, in the first Thanksgiving? No. It's such a great thing for kids especially.
Oh, I think everybody loves to see mac and cheese on the table. Right. Absolutely.
Nothing wrong with frozen fruit and vegetables?
No, and actually, they can really be, first of all, they're incredibly affordable, and they work really well in a lot of Thanksgiving casseroles and classic dishes like that. And the benefit of frozen vegetables, of course, is if you use what you need and then you tuck the rest away in your freezer and you can use it, within a few months.
We'll have all the tips for you at herenow.org. I would just say that dessert is something you can, when someone says, can I bring something, say yes.
Of course.
Margot Lasky, Associate Editor of Recipes with New York Times Cooking, with 17 tips on how to make your Thanksgiving delicious while saving you money. Margot, happy Thanksgiving to you, and thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy Thanksgiving.
To all. From NPR and WBUR, I'm Robin Young in Boston.
And I'm Deepa Fernandez in Alameda, California. This is Here and Now.
That was Here and Now, right? Said that was Here and Now, right?
Yes.
Just want to make sure I heard that right. BIE D62 by.
I'll be with you in just a moment. What can I get started for you?
Can I get 2 triple baconators, 1 large fry, and no drinks?
Just the sandwiches on those?
Yes.
And 1 medium fry, you said?
Large.
1 large fry.
1 large fry. Anything else for you?
Yeah, okay, you got it. Yeah, that's it.
Alright, it's going to be $24.47 at the second window.
How much? 24. Why was it so high the other day?
I didn't get french fries.
Gotta still have this car.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Border to safely return to their homes. Lebanon's Deputy Parliament Speaker Elias Boussab said officials are close to a ceasefire, but that nothing is guaranteed. Israel's military has tightened restrictions on Israeli schools and gatherings near the Lebanese border, anticipating intensified Hezbollah rocket fire. Both Hezbollah and Israel escalated attacks this weekend. Daniel Estrid, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Macy says an accounting employee hid tens of millions of dollars in expenses at the department store chain. This forced the company to delay its quarterly financial report, which is widely watched for clues about consumer spending around the holidays. Here's NPR's Alina Saleh.
It's one of the most unusual announcements Macy's has made. The company says it has discovered that a single employee who oversaw expenses from small package delivery had intentionally hid huge sums spent on those expenses. It was up to $154 million spent over the past 3 years. Macy's says the person is no longer employed by them. The company claims nobody else was involved, and it did not say why the employee intentionally made these errors. This means Macy's is delaying its financial forecast for the all-important holiday season. The chain is trying to turn around its slumping sales with a plan that involves closing 150 underperforming stores. Alina Saleh, NPR News.
Rally today in Pakistan's capital over the imprisonment of former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Earlier today, a large number of Khan supporters reportedly were detained. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
This is CPR News and KRCC. I'm Dan Boyce. A Denver jury awarded a $1 million verdict last week to a man experiencing homelessness who was allegedly assaulted by concierges at a luxury apartment building. Early Jackson was walking home from his construction job to the Salvation Army shelter in 2022 when temperatures were below freezing. He attempted to warm up in the lobby of the Quincy Apartments. According to a lawsuit, the building's concierges dragged him from the lobby, and one employee pointed a gun at Jackson's head. The jury found Jackson suffered negligence, injuries, and damages at the hands of the concierges and the company that employed them. Schriever Space Force Base in Colorado Springs has been selected as the final location for a new unit. Space Delta 15 is the 11th such mission in the state. It helps with so-called space battle management as well as intelligence and cybersecurity efforts. Schriever was the only base which met requirements for hosting Delta 15. The multi-day snowstorm that swept through Colorado earlier this month made major improvements to the state's snowpack conditions. That snowpack is like a big water bank for cities, farmers, and other users. Denver 7 Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson says those water supplies are off to a good start.
And for our mountain snowpack, as far as our water supplies, we are in good shape right now, even though it took us a while to get the thing going.
But Nelson cautions it's still early, and Colorado will not know the true condition of that water bank until the spring. But we will be adding more to the snowpack this week, especially in the mountains. Expect significant snowfall tomorrow and Wednesday. We're looking for widespread travel impacts in the mountains, including slick and frozen roads, road closures, all kinds of things. This is CPR News and KRCC.
Support comes from JFS, providing those in need with food, housing, stability, counseling, employment support, and more. Learn how to support their efforts to help people in the community at jfscolorado.org.
From NPR and WBUR, I'm Robin Young in Boston.
And I'm Deepa Fernandez in Alameda, California. It's here and now. President-elect Donald Trump has announced most of his cabinet, but the health agency leaders he's expected to nominate don't have much experience fighting infectious disease. Some of them, like former Human Services Chief Robert F. Kennedy Jr., have even spread conspiracy theories about vaccines.
Might have hung out there
For the
for a
latest
plate
on what
somewhere.
the incoming cabinet could mean for your health, we're joined by Washington Post national health reporter Dan Diamond. Dan, welcome.
Deepa, thank you for having me back.
Yeah, so Dan, RFK Jr. was one of Trump's first cabinet announcements, but now we have his picks for the Centers for Disease Control and the Food and Drug Administration. The CDC's director is David Weldon. That's the pick there. He's a medical doctor and a former Republican congressman who has pushed false claims about vaccine safety, linking it to autism. Here he is in a 2002 congressional hearing.
Some children may have serious side effects from some of these vaccines that is really going undetected, unnoticed, and yes, it may actually cause autism.
Well, that's David Weldon in 2002, and again, there is no evidence autism. Weldon himself has been in the public eye for years, and what can you tell us about him?
Well, former Congressman Weldon had made a number of claims that got national attention. He was involved in the vaccine work that you mentioned. He was involved in the case of a woman named Terry Schiavo, which some of your listeners may recall. She was a brain-damaged woman from Florida whose decision by her family to end her life attracted national attention. And Dave Weldon, a physician serving in Congress, who wasn't her doctor, weighed in on that as well. He wanted to personally inspect her case. So he had been a controversial figure on these medical issues. And then, as you said, he really hasn't been in the public eye for 15 years. He mounted a bid for Senate in 2012, lost, and has been doing other things outside of politics for these years.
Okay. Then there's the FDA director pick, and that's Marty McCary. He's a Johns Hopkins surgeon and a frequent Fox News contributor. He's been sharply critical of the FDA. How does he want to change it, Dan?
Well, he has made a number of critiques over the years of FDA and some of the broader federal health agencies. He said that they're too slow, they're too bureaucratic. Those are bipartisan concerns, to be fair. He's not the first person to bring that up. But what he specifically honed in on during the coronavirus response was he said it was too heavy-handed, that some of the recommendations around vaccines were too blanket. There were recommendations that young Americans get 2 shots of the coronavirus and follow-up boosters. Marty McCary thought that was overkill, that there was evidence, and he's not alone in thinking this, of heart inflammation among younger men in particular. So that was one area where he differed from the regulators. Another area that he hasn't agreed with the regulators on before was work around medical errors, also price transparency, and he's pushed some of those issues throughout his career. Worked with the first Trump administration on that as well.
Carbon
And
County,
then there's
that's
the
Wyoming.
Surgeon General pick, Janet Nishiwat. She's also a frequent Fox
Carbon
News
County,
contributor.
Wyoming, yeah.
Is she the most mainstream pick so far?
It's right across the border,
I
bags
think
and all that.
Vaccine scientist Dr. Peter Hotez, he's praised her, for example.
Dr. Hotez retweeted
That would be a bad job.
that she was the choice for Surgeon General, so I saw some of the reaction to his post. There are a lot of supporters of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. who were drawn to him because of his anti-vaccine message. He says he's not anti-vaccine, but he's certainly been a major critic. And the post by Dr. Hotez has been very pro-vaccine, drew a lot of anger.
I did it for a couple of years until I failed a random UA.
Who don't want people who are supporting the vaccines in these roles serving with Kennedy. I think that's particularly interesting. I mean, this is something that if you look at polling across the United States, a wide variety of Americans, most Americans, regardless of political party,
actually filed a
we
DOT
empower vaccines, especially for children. The fact that a Surgeon General nominee would have these pretty bland views on vaccines, and that's drawing pushback. I think it shows where Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is taking
driving a tow truck that gave me a random UA because I still had my CDL,
We should
even
note
though I
that
wasn't
Robert
driving the
Kennedy
CDL
Jr. will
vehicle.
be Janet Nishiwat's boss, as you point out in your reporting. Now, President Trump has signaled that he wants to focus on chronic disease, not infectious disease. So, if you take these picks in totality, what could they do
That's
to
the first time
long-standing
it passed the
policy?
second time for what duty is.
Well, I think the idea of focusing on chronic disease is a good one. We reported at the Washington Post last year a series of stories that America's declining life expectancy, the rise of chronic disease, these were things that have been ignored for years. If Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is confirmed, if his picks are confirmed, they put more focus on these problems like diabetes and heart disease and issues that haven't attracted much political attention. That could be a good thing. The story that we wrote this weekend, that I did with my colleagues on infectious disease, that I think is one of the bigger concerns. We just lived through a pandemic where the federal government, under Donald Trump, accelerated the development of vaccines. Will Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has been critical of vaccines, do the same? We're not sure.
Yeah, okay. Dan Diamond is a national health reporter for the Washington Post. Thanks for all your reporting, Dan.
Nika, thank you so much.
Well, political leaders in blue states are preparing for a second Trump administration, and if past his prologue, this means resisting many of his policies in the courts. As WBUR's Anthony Brooks reports, President-elect Donald Trump represents a challenge that's both familiar and unfamiliar to Massachusetts Democratic Governor Maura Healey.
Healey has been here before. In 2016, after Trump shocked the nation and won his first race for the White House, she was the state's attorney general. Back then, she told an audience near Boston that she'd do whatever was necessary to block Trump's efforts to roll back protections for civil rights, immigrants, health care, and the environment.
And I want you to know that we may do it through litigation, we may do it through our own rulemaking, we may do it through enforcement of our own.
She made good on that pledge. She sued the Trump administration nearly 100 times. Politico called her and her like-minded AGs the shock troops of the Democratic resistance. Halfway through Trump's first term, she told me that while the work was important, she hoped to move past it.
I would really like to see a day where we didn't have to sue the federal government. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Last evening, we had an election. The election is over. Donald Trump is the president-elect.
That's Healey the day after the latest election, bracing for Trump 2.0. Now, as governor, she's adopted a different tone.
Whoever you are, whoever you voted for, know that we're going to continue to work together and move this.
Gone was the pledge to resist and litigate. In its place, a promise to represent all of Massachusetts, including more than 1 million citizens who voted for Trump. As governor, Healey faces a balancing act. She says she's focused on the business of the state, like the new economic development bill, lowering costs and adding housing. At the same time, the state has billions of federal dollars at stake for education, science, healthcare, and transportation. So to the extent possible, she'll need to work with the new Trump administration. Evan Horowitz, who directs the Center for State Policy Analysis at Tufts University, says it makes sense that Healey would shed the label of resistor in chief.
Being the governor means something different. And the first challenge, I think, for the governor is not to return to that lane. You know, she can't do that again because she's not the AG.
That new job now belongs to Andrea Campbell. In her first press conference after Trump's victory, Campbell sounded a lot like Healey did 8 years ago, pledging to protect democracy, racial justice, reproductive freedom, and more.
We have been working to identify prospective threats under a Trump administration, as well as strategies to best address those threats should they arise.
Campbell says Trump has made it clear what he intends to do and how it could hurt blue states like Massachusetts.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program of criminals in the history of America.
Trump has nominated a border czar, Tom Homan, to execute the policy. Speaking on Fox News, Homan promised to move aggressively against sanctuary states like Massachusetts.
I've seen some of these Democratic governors say they're going to stand in the way, they're going to make it hard for us. Well, a suggestion. If you're not going to help us, get the hell out of the way, but we're going to do it.
Homan also went after Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, who has insisted the city's police will not participate in Trump's deportation plan. A Boston law limits how much the cops can cooperate with federal immigration authorities. While they can help arrest people suspected of major crimes, they won't detain people on civil immigration violations. Mayor Wu says the law is designed to build trust between police and the city's immigrant communities.
The federal government does what the federal government does, and elections have consequences, but we were also elected here in Boston to do what we do and to focus on our work at the local level.
Meanwhile, Governor Healey is being cautious. For example, she has not joined a new group called Governors Safeguarding Democracy. And she says she hopes the new administration and Congress will pass a bill to secure the border. Still, she says she'll oppose Trump when necessary.
Should he take steps that harm our residents, that infringe on their rights, that interfere with their rights, for example, access to health care, access to abortion, that will certainly fight that.
But others in the state are already poised to battle the Trump administration. Orrin Selstrom is litigation director with the Boston-based Lawyers for Civil Rights. He says he's prepared to challenge Trump's mass deportation plan, his promise to end birthright citizenship, and to defund sanctuary cities, among other initiatives.
Many of which we were able to put a stop to the last time around, but we certainly know that he's going to attempt many of those moves again.
So it's deja vu for Selstrom and for Governor Hill. But it's also different this time, according to Hill.
The courts have changed. We know that. Donald Trump was able to appoint a number of justices, including 3 to the United States Supreme Court. You saw the president being given immunity, overturning of Roe. Of course, we don't know, and we can't predict how courts will rule, but that's a difference.
Which could mean a challenging time for the anti-Trump resistance and for a governor who has battled Trump in the past, but whose job now is to protect the broad interests of Massachusetts. For Here and Now, I'm Anthony Brooks.
And still ahead today, John Legend singing for and with his kids on a new album, also weighing in on the debate over IVF treatments, which brought him and wife Chrissy 4 beautiful children. That's still to come here and now.
Hello, my name is Sean Ramaswamy. And I'm the World Kid. We make a sometimes funny, sometimes serious daily news show. It's called Today Explained. It's from Vox.
We deliver the context you need to get your head around the news.
All the news, political, art, tech, economy, and government.
Just kidding. It's free. It's Today Explained.
Weekdays at 12:30 and again at 9 on KRCC and CPR News.
Support CPR with a gift from your IRA without paying extra federal income taxes. This kind of gift takes a bit of planning, but it makes a real difference. Get started on the support page at CPR.org.
The CPR Classical Carol Countdown is back next month. Your votes program the show with 32 holiday favorites going head-to-head. Vote now at CPRClassical.org.
Funding for Here and Now comes from BetterHelp, committed to making mental well-being a priority and offering support in taking on everything life demands, with therapists available to communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/public.
It's Here and Now. New research finds that improving the pay of early childhood teachers has net benefits for workers and the economy. The findings come out of an innovative program in the nation's capital. The District of Columbia has been supplementing the low wages of childcare workers, bringing them in line with K-12 teachers in public schools. NPR's Andrea Hsu has been reporting on this, and she joins us now. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Deepa.
So let's set the table here and remind our listeners that childcare workers are often some of the lowest paid in the workforce. Many earn the minimum wage. And this is despite the fact that many do have educational qualifications, maybe an associate's or a bachelor's degree. And this program that you're reporting on tackles this head on. Andrea, tell us how it works.
Yeah, well, about 3 years ago, the D.C. Council approved a tax hike on the highest income earners, those who are making over $250,000 a year. And they created something called a pay equity fund for early childhood educators. And the childcare workers, they're disproportionately women of color, people, as you say, who are really underpaid. Then about 2 years ago, about 4,000 childcare teachers in D.C. started getting these lump sum payments. The first year, it was $14,000 to lead teachers, $10,000 to assistant teachers. which was a 30-some% increase in pay for a lot of them. Some also got healthcare benefits. And I talked to a few teachers about this. One was Bunny Skillis. She used to be a researcher for a real estate company, but after her daughter was born, she realized how much she loved watching her daughter grow and learn, and she thought, I could do this for a living. She actually took a pay cut to work in a child care center 6-7 years ago. But, as her daughter was getting older and she had more expenses, she, thought about quitting that job just because it wasn't enough money. She wanted something better paying. And that's about when the pay equity fund kicked in. So she decided to stay in childcare.
Now I'm able to do something that I'm really good at, that I have a passion for, that I love, and I'm able to be financially compensated for that. And that's a beautiful thing.
And, Deepa, I've heard a lot of these stories. Another teacher said, the money made a big difference in her sense of financial security. She and her husband moved out of their apartment and bought a house.
Yeah, that's a big deal, Andrea. So, on a personal level, it sounds like it is really making a difference. But what about beyond the individual teachers? Is it having the kind of impact that was hoped for?
Yeah, and actually there's tons and tons of research coming out of this program, and the research has found that not only has it improved the lives of teachers, but it's stabilized the childcare workforce and actually grown it. One study by Owen Shoshay at Mathematica, the data research firm, found this pay equity fund, which costs in his calculations about $54 million for 1 year. It led to a 7% increase in DC's childcare workforce. That's about 200-some additional teachers. So here's what he said about that.
So I think it's important to consider the costs of this program, which are high, with the considerable benefits to society.
And Deepa, I saw these benefits on a visit to Ideal Childcare Development Center, a childcare center in DC, where every classroom had at least 2 teachers. The director told me she used to struggle to find good teachers, but now she says she has people coming to her to look for jobs, and right now she has a surplus of teachers. She has 3 floaters to go wherever needed. So, the societal benefits that Owen Shoshay talks about starts with the teachers, but then it moves to the childcare centers, where there's less turnover. And then when there are more slots at these childcare centers, more families benefit. And he says the quality of care improves when teachers stay on the job, when there's not a lot of turnover, not a lot of new people coming in. Owen Shoshay worked with an economist to put a dollar amount on these benefits. And they calculated that this program over 1 year had a 23% return on investment, which is pretty amazing.
So, Andrea, all these findings sound really positive. Could this program be replicated in other cities?
Well, that is really the hope, and researchers have been fielding calls from all around the country about this. One of those researchers is Erica Greenberg at the Urban Institute, who has been surveying teachers and directors and families. And one big issue that has come up is that, childcare teachers earn so little, a large share of them are receiving public benefits. And now with the extra money that's coming through the Pay Equity Fund, some are over the eligibility threshold. Here's what Erica Greenberg had to say about that.
For some early educators, it is not financially worth their while to take the additional funds. So that's a sad statement on the state of financial well-being among early educators, but for some, the additional payments would not be enough to make up for the lost public benefits.
So in other places in the country, they're trying to grapple with this problem. But, right here in DC, another problem is that the future of this program is not certain, and people are really nervous about this.
Why is that?
Well, earlier this year, the mayor of DC was juggling a lot of budget priorities, and in her proposed budget for 2025, she actually zeroed out the program. Now that, led to a lot of advocacy from the childcare community, from families, and the money was restored for a year, but a lot of people are expecting this to be a fight again next year.
Andrea Hsu is NPR Labor and Workplace Correspondent. Andrea, thank you so much.
Thank you, Deepa.
Well, to a story now about climate change, which, remember, is about extremes. And parts of the country have certainly seen that. Devastating rains, but also more than 40% of the lower 48 states are now experiencing drought, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor. In the Northeast, that's
Let's take your keys so you have them.
Fires in towns outside Boston, in New Jersey. And drought in those areas could also impact the state.
That way, if I don't have to go to the restroom, I don't like you out of the car.
You are out in a cranberry bog as we speak?
Piggy wiggy.
I sure am.
Well, you know, people can maybe picture this. You're part of Ocean Spray, which is a co-op. It's owned by farmers like you, your father before you, your son coming up after you. And we see the harvesters and waders, and they've got rakes. They're raking in these gorgeous berries. You have to bring in the deep water. Explain.
So cranberries actually are not grown in a wet environment. Typically, they're very similar to growing vegetables in your own garden. You don't want too much moisture. But in the fall, we need to flood those bogs up.
Hey, that's a beautiful animal.
First day we flood just a little bit, so the tips of the
That's when you don't come up and say, "Here, puppy, puppy, puppy."
Over the vines to knock the berries off. Overnight, we need to put an additional 8 to 12 inches more water on, so that when we put the boom out around the berries, it's easier to pull.
Well, so, I mean, how is the drought impacting the harvest, which we understand it is?
So our water holes going into harvest season this year were down a couple of feet. So it becomes quite a challenge. And we've gotten used to it. We've had some pretty droughty years. We've learned that we need to stockpile it a little bit just to make sure we have enough.
And this has been going on. New Jersey farmers are reporting that they've never seen such low rainfall before this year. So what kind of losses, you know, can you put a number on what you're losing in the crop?
So this year, what I saw early in the season as far as the crop was going to be an excellent crop. And we had a really good first part of the year. We had good rain. And then all of a sudden it just stopped. And it's during a period where our cranberries are sizing up. So they weren't able to size up like we wanted them to. So I believe that my crop was down maybe as high as 25% as a result of that.
Well, that's a big hit, you know, a financial hit. And now Ocean Spray, we should say, and again, you're one town over from the headquarters there. They told us in a statement that this drought isn't going to impact the price of cranberry products this Thanksgiving because of the other growing regions, Wisconsin and Quebec, picking up your slack. This seems to be an arc that we're on towards more drought. You know, we talked about your son maybe following you. Do you worry that this is going to impact the future of cranberry harvesting?
It does. I mean, we're certainly having to adapt to climate change. And, you know, drought this year doesn't only impact this year's crop. During the month of August, the bud is developing for our next year's crop. So it definitely has the potential for impacting us negatively in the next year. We're going to continue to have more events like this. Scientists tell us absolutely. So we have to be ready. I've done a lot of renovating to new bogs, making sure